everybody, what is going on? I am Maximus Rex, and this is Big Baby Reviews. Once again, joined by my good bud, Mark Darden. How's it going, Mark?
Pretty good. Doing all right.
We're continuing on our series of looking at the initial storyline offerings from the Image Founding Fathers way back in 1992. And it is Spawn Day once again. We are at the last chapter, I guess, of the initial storyline, issue number 4. Mark's holding that up for you guys there. Nice shot of the Violator and Mark making out. That's disturbing. So we're going to get started on this one right away. Start taking a look at the cover. Dissect it till there's nothing left of the body. And that's usually what we do here on Big Baby Reviews.
Oh, yeah.
Pick at the carcass till there's nothing left.
Yeah. I mean, Spawn number 4. The series, we start out like we both love issue 1. Artistically, it's so pretty, and the graphics, and we do learn a good bit about the character and what's going on. And then we talked about how there's this big plunge with issue 2 where very little happens. You get introduced to the Violator, he's taking down mobsters. Spawn spends the whole issue just lamenting, other than trying to like, oh wait, I have magic, I'll just make myself normal again. Oh wait, I can only be white. That's not right. And that's the whole story. But meanwhile, the art like plunges down. Like the Violator scenes are good, but the Spawn scenes are they're all boring and seems like they're rushed through. And then like issue 3 comes back up. There's like good moodiness again. All the art's really consistent, but it's another issue. Almost nothing happens. Like Spawn goes and visits his family and learns what's happened to his now ex-wife. And that's about it. And then we get to this issue, and like artistically, really great. You know, it's probably the second best one of the series. Like it's all throughout. I was just like, oh yeah, there's all of this. He spent a good amount of time on it, other than that one little page and a half thing with the graphics. But other than that, like art-wise, it's really great. But then nothing happened. There's like one plot point. You know, it's just we've built to this big battle, and then just nothing happens.
Really what it is Spawn learns ever so slightly more about his deal with the devil. That's basically what happens in this issue. I will commend it for actually having, you know, like you said, issue number 1 had a bit of action with like, you know, the gang and stuff like that, but it was a pretty short sequence. Issue 2 had the Violator sequences, but they were just a few pages. So, you know, Todd's really making us wait for like a solid action sequence up until this issue here, issue number 4. So yeah, if you're not into the art and you were just kind of buying Spawn for the storyline, which is probably, let's be honest, not very many people necessarily, but yeah, you were definitely not well served. And you know, getting to this issue here, I'm probably still kind of disappointed storyline wise, but at least if you're looking for some cool art and finally a fairly decent lasting action sequence, we get it in issue 4 finally. You know, if we kind of compare it with Savage Dragon, right? Savage Dragon just starts you off right away with a crazy slam bang kind of action sequence right in the first issue on the first page, right? You're just thrown right into it, which is definitely an approach for this type of comics that I think is much better, right? Like hit them hard right away and then get into some of the storylines and plot points and characters talking to each other. Todd kind of does the opposite. A lot of talking, very few kind of action bits. And then here in the last issue of the, it's not a mini series, but the first storyline offering, finally get a bit of cool kind of superhero comics action.
And point on that, they were all supposed to be mini series. That was supposed to be the deal. But half the creators didn't hold to it. Cyberforce stuck to doing a mini series. Shadowhawk did a mini series and continued with a mini series and a mini series. Wait, are they the only 2? Oh, Wildcats didn't, Youngblood didn't, Spawn didn't. Oh, Savage Dragon. So then Savage Dragon did a mini series. So 3 of the creators stuck to the mini series, and the other 3 went, I'm just going to keep the numbers rolling. Yeah. And with Savage Dragon, it's actually one of the ones where it doesn't make sense to hold to a mini series because you don't really have a beginning, middle, end. You just have a beginning, and then some more stuff happens. And
Yeah, issue one of the regular series could have just as easily been issue 4, right? He's like,
Yeah,
okay, we said it was a mini series, but we're just gonna keep going and make it a regular series, right?
yeah.
I
And
mean,
then
there's precedent that's
Wildcats,
happened before.
yeah. And Wildcats was a mini series, but decided to continue the numbering, even though it would have been proper to end on issue 4 and start again. Anyway, anyway, I on the cover, and I continue, like, is it the least, like, how does it rank? We've got 4 covers.
Well, listen, first cover is maybe the most dynamic, I would say, because you've got Spawn kind of in an action pose, where issue 2 and 3, it's just Spawn kind of being gothy and moping around a little bit, which we're
Yeah.
going to get a lot of shots like that throughout the series, both on the covers and splash pages within the comic. So kind of a repetitive motif. Um,
Hmm.
issue 4, I mean, changes it up because, first of all, it's not the main character Spawn, it's his main antagonist at this point, the Violator.
Yeah.
I always, some people have bitched about the Violator's design. I think it's really cool and interesting
Yeah.
and different and fun. I've always thought the Violator had a cool design. And so, I mean, it's hard to say. What's the most visually arresting cover? Probably issue 1, I would still go with.
Hmm.
Issue 4, I feel like Todd kind of goes, maybe it's a deadline issue or something, but, Todd, anytime he's at Image, at least, like he did a Prophet cover, which is just a close up of Prophet's face. And then a lot of times I feel like when he's asked to do these kind of pieces by other artists, he'll just do the easiest thing, which is just a close up headshot. And I feel like that's a little bit of what he did here with issue 4. He's like, okay, probably decided, it's very centered on Spawn and the Violator. So it makes sense now to have the Violator on the cover. But, I don't have a lot of time and stuff. So I'm just going to do a cropped up, close up headshot of the Violator, get through it quickly, and move on.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's some really good detail in all the teeth. There's little small teeth in the long extended jaw. I definitely think the colorist had to put some work in because they really wanted to hit that bug, that fly style eye that
Yeah.
they gave the Violator. So that's visually interesting. Um, Especially if they'd gone for some kind of that, some kind of gimmick cover bit might have been neat, even if it was just the ink or something, some special ink.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, there's a good amount of forehead details, and it's the first one where it's using a lot of black framing. So yeah,
Listen, I don't think in any, I wouldn't say it's a bad cover, but I feel like it's a little bit of maybe like a deadline cover, I guess is what I'd call
mhm,
it, right? This is the kind of shot that you can get through fairly quickly. You're not experimenting too much. You're going to pretty much succeed in doing a cool looking image and then move on to drawing some more pages inside the comic. Lots of slobber. There's always a slight connection, I think, in some of the visual look of Violator and Venom, right? So there's some um, connection there with the big
yeah,
eyes, the big teeth, and the slobber and all that stuff. So
uh-huh, yeah. I do have one thing about this to page 1 is since they go with this angle of this straight on angle for page 1, I wish they did the same angle. I wish we were seeing like the hand here holding a heart so that it was like,
just flipping it around. Yeah.
yeah, and yeah, so then it would be like a continuation of the image of like, boom, here's the face, and then boom,
Sure,
here's that.
almost kind of like we were talking about Watchmen before we started shooting, almost like Watchmen, where the cover is really the first panel or the first shot of the
Oh,
story, right?
yeah, 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 yeah. Thought that would have been neat. Um, Todd does, he's got his very very small team, and that holds pretty well throughout. Uh, and really only Rob's the guy that like every issue, it's like, oh, who's working on this one? You
Yeah, he
know,
seems to be the most inconsistent when it comes to his staffing. Yeah.
yeah, right. Jim adds an inker starting with issue 2, but otherwise it stays the same. Wildcats, it holds throughout. Savage Dragon holds through the miniseries. Yeah, but yeah, consistent.
And really, I mean, this first page is literally just a recap page. That's really what it
Mhm.
is. So when you read the captions here, it's basically reiterating what's happened in issue 1 to 3, right? So, Todd could have pretty much drawn anything for this page. Could have been a shot of Spawn's face, could have been, cape and chains or something, right? I mean, he is bringing us back to, again, what's happened before, because we did see this
Yep.
happen last issue. But again, I feel like this is, a page that he's like, man, if I just draw a close up of the hand of Violator holding Spawn's heart, right, and don't add too many backgrounds and framing, I can get through this page pretty quickly.
Yeah, and I mean, now that you bring it up, because it is the recap page, how much more fun would it have been if he did have the hand, but then behind it was just a slew of panels?
Small little panels
Yeah,
reiterating. That's what I mean. Is
yearbook
like,
style.
yeah,
Yeah,
like
just yearbook style, showing everything that's happened. Get 16 panels in there, all just mini shots, and then you could spread this dialogue out, maybe cut it down a whole lot, and it would be a kind of fun, quick read recap, but with the hand in front.
yeah, I mean, it would play much more to what we already always talk about that we prefer is that, it's a visual medium. So all the stuff that's happening in the captions here that we're reading could have been shown to us visually. And that is definitely, I think, a weakness in Tom McFarlane's writing and in a lot of the Image guys' storylines overall. Maybe other than, Eric Larson and Jim Valentino, who, as we've said from the very beginning, are kind of more seasoned veterans, clearly
Mhm.
have written a lot more up to this point than the other Image founders. Also, I think they're the only two guys other than Todd who don't have help writing. Larson's writing his own stuff, Valentino's writing his own stuff, but every other guy brought one of their friends in, right? The Hank Canals and the Brandon Choi's, and
Uh-huh.
you know. Oh, interesting fact I found out from
Yeah,
that Wills interview that I was telling you about on Raw Observations that
oh,
Brandon Choi. I don't know if he ever actually got to Special Forces, but he was in the Navy for a while and trained, to I guess get to the Special Forces. So that made a
mm,
lot of sense going back and looking at all the kind of secret government teams and stuff that are involved in all the homage books, right? You've got Team Seven, Death Blow, even Wildcats, right? Their covert action. So I think a lot of that influence in the Jim Lee books comes from Brandon Choi actually, and his interest in the Navy and Special Forces and stuff like that. But anyways, we're not here to talk about Todd and Spawn.
Um, yeah, I also, so just picking out one of these paragraphs, because you've got one, he mentions Spawn going to see his wife, and then they get to this paragraph, and this is an example of how it's so wordy of, but while seeing his wife, he also learned that she was happily remarried. Worse than that, the one thing she had always wanted, the one thing Al could never give her, had been delivered, a child. So throughout this page and really throughout his writing, like he's always over wordy where he thinks it's making it poetic or dramatic, but it's just like he's seen other people use words, so he uses them, but
Yes.
he doesn't really artfully use them.
Yeah, it seems kind of tacked on and not really necessary. It's almost like,
Mhm.
yeah, you could do it that way, try to be all kind of flowery and stuff with your dialogue, or you can just get straight to the point and just keep it simple, stupid, right?
Yeah, because he could lose. I rewrote it. I kept his style and I cut it down by about a third. First, skipping out reiterating that he visited his wife, because we know that from the previous paragraph. So why say it again? And just cut it to, but she was happily remarried. And worse, one thing she always wanted, the one thing Al could never give her, was delivered, a child. Using has been is one thing as a writer. I recommend, like, get away from has been. You never need it. You could
Yes.
just say was or is. Which one? Pick one. But has been, you don't need. I don't even really like the was delivered part.
I was going to say, just take out had been delivered. Just the one thing he could never give her, a child.
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
That's
you normally just write, she had the one thing she always wanted, the one thing he could never give her, a child.
yeah.
It's like he's trying to make it more cryptic, like speaking like Yoda almost, like you're holding out the one piece of information and leaving it for the end. Like, why? It's
Yeah,
annoying.
these are the instances where I remember when people would complain about Todd's writing and say, oh, he's trying to kind of do like an Alan Moore thing. I feel like that's what he's trying to do. But of course,
Yeah.
Todd is no Alan Moore. So it's not quite working out that way.
No, and if you didn't train to write, and if you didn't study to write it, you could read something somebody does and just copy it, but you don't know why to use it. And so you're not putting it in effectively and not using it in the right places. I mean, artistically, I would think, imagine you don't know how to do art, but you see splatter painting and go, oh, well, I can
do
sling
that.
paint across the room,
Yeah.
but you're still not envisioning the technique. You're still not seeing where to throw the colors together. You're just randomly tossing stuff and hoping it works rather than the person who is doing splatter paint but has an artistic eye as they're doing it and has kind of a vision. And yeah, there's some randomness to how it's playing together, but they do have somewhat of a plan as they're working or finding it as they go versus just I'm just tossing stuff. It's not
Absolutely.
as random as it seems.
Well, there has to be, someone who's doing splatter artwork, like you said, who's, a trained artist, has a particular goal in mind and a reasoning and
Mhm.
understands about composition and layout, as opposed to someone, the layman who's like, it's just a bunch of paint thrown on a paintboard, it's not
Yeah.
complicated. And let's not forget the Todd, right? He has admitted, I don't know if you've read these old interviews and stuff, that, I forget who it was with, Gary Groth, I think, who asked him about, so what do you read, Todd? He's like, the sports page, like
Yeah.
that's about all he reads. So
Yeah.
kind of like George Costanza from Seinfeld.
Yeah. That would be interesting. It'd be like if you were an artist and they were like, oh, well, what do you look at? Um, I don't. I don't look at art. Why would I do that? I don't like art.
Exactly.
I
Exactly.
don't appreciate it.
But I want to produce it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it wouldn't make sense. Wouldn't make sense at all. This is the only comic I think of in his series where he does the Kirby thing. He opens on a splash page and then goes to a double page splash.
Oh, you're right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I hadn't thought of that. Yeah.
Yeah, and we get this one. You go ahead. You've talked about this one.
Well, first of all, it's basically a reiteration of the shot that we saw at the end of last issue, issue number 3, right? It's pretty much the same thing. Do you have it there handy?
Yeah, I was
Yeah,
like,
pull
oh
that up
yeah,
on screen because I mean, not that it's a bad drawing, looks pretty cool. You've got some layering in there. You've got the up close shot of the Violator hand once again holding the heart. But yeah, I mean, Spawn himself is pretty much in the same position here. It's like we've moved the camera forward just a little bit again towards Violator's hand, but I would argue this is pretty much the same shot. Not that either shot is bad; they both look really cool. Um, but just surprising that he would just want to redo something so similar. Just an odd choice to me. If you're going to do this, then zoom the camera out, zoom it in, pick a different angle. You know what I mean? If you're going to be redoing the same shot, but it's very similar. So just a bit redundant. Both great pieces of art, but just very redundant. But
yeah.
it's
I
got
think
all the McFarlaneisms, right? The finicky detail, the gory blood, just highly detailed. It's got the cape flowing all over the place.
yeah.
And also color wise, I guess this is early days, so they're still kind of experimenting a little bit. We may have talked about this last review too. Just surprised to see Spawn's power emanations
Mhm.
kind of, usually, it becomes streamlined where it's green. Here it's orange. I kind of like it. I don't hate it. I still think orange would work.
Mhm.
But I get at a certain point that you kind of pick a color and go with that
Yeah.
to kind of streamline the thing. Also, I'll talk about it here. I've mentioned this before where Spawn's costume is meant to be black, but there's always open spaces left for highlights
Mhm.
and stuff. In this issue, we'll see it. Sometimes they do it like here, where they use a blue. And I always said I don't like the use of the blue because it starts to bring it back more towards kind of the superhero poppy colors and less towards kind of the horror vibe of Spawn. But then there's later panels we'll see where they use kind of a gray, which I always think is the best way to do it with Spawn specifically. And I know that eventually, like through the run, as McFarlane was still drawing it, they used the blue more and more, and it kind of annoyed me visually more and more as we moved ahead. And then when Greg Capullo comes in, they start to phase out that blue highlight and go back to the gray. I guess at some point they realize, man, with the mood and the vibe of Spawn, the gray is just a much better choice than the blue. It's a minor, bitch on my part, but it's just something that every time they throw that blue on Spawn, it just pulls it more towards the superhero stuff, which I think Spawn works best in the horror vibe more so
Yeah.
than the superhero stuff. Even
Yeah.
Batman, right? Like I've anytime Batman's costume got bluer and bluer and less black, he
Uh,
tends to just become kind of another superhero rather than keeping that intense kind of dark um, look and personality that we associate with Batman.
yeah, yeah, I agree with you. Um, I was also going to mention there's a wildly low panel count throughout this issue.
Yes.
It, yeah, if you don't count the 2 pages that he and Eric Larson did, the copycat pages,
Yeah.
there's less than 2 panels per page. If you count those pages, then it gets into a little over, it's 2.25 panels per page. So wildly low, which really to me speaks of there not being much of a story. Like there's 1, 2 plot points this whole thing. It's a big battle and then a reveal of some extra info, and that's it. It's almost nothing happens. It takes 7 pages just to get to the fist swinging, really. So
Yeah. A lot of posturing
wow.
early on.
Yeah.
Well, this is a good point and a good page here to point out the fact that this issue is a little low on backgrounds. So I think by the time Todd's at issue 4 here, he's had a fairly regular schedule, not quite monthly, but he is the one guy who's trying to stick really to that monthly schedule. So I do feel like there are instances in the art where he's like, well, let's try to speed it up, right? Like I said, the first page, there's no backgrounds. It's a quick drawing of the hand and the heart, Violator hand and Spawn's heart. You could probably get through that page pretty quickly. Don't think he spent a whole day on that one. And this is another example too here where the backgrounds are just very minimal. Drawing that little bit of a building and the bit of smoke on the ground or whatever, that doesn't take very much time. And then the 2 Violator panels at the bottom just literally have nothing other than kind of, I guess you'd call those expression lines or effect lines. And not much going on these pages other than just close-ups of the Violator. Another thing I'll mention because there's an example of it here. The Violator, the nose area. Todd has a thing. There's just a weird thing in Spawn with noses. Spawn's nose changes, comes back, disappears. It's like he doesn't quite know what to do with it. And eventually he settles on the fact that there's just no nose really with Spawn. Violator kind of has the same thing. Early on in the Spawn series, he's occasionally drawn that weird kind of triangular thing that you can see on the bottom panel here. And even on the cover, it's almost like he kind of hints at it or like he's not
sure. Yeah.
It's like he's not sure about it. He's like, do I do it? Do I not do it? Here, it's kind of almost imperceptible.
Glad he left it out for the most part.
And eventually it's gonna, just like Spawn's nose, Violator's nose is gonna disappear.
Yeah. Story-wise, I found it weird that the Violator, like the Violator's job, it seemed it was that he was supposed to keep an eye on Spawn.
Like
He's supposed to be, prod him along a little bit, but instead he just gets, he attacks mobsters for some reason, creating issues in the city for some reason. Just kind of
really
going
explained.
Yeah. And then he gets into a fight with Spawn and just goes, I'm gonna rip your heart out. Be done with it. Like, then here he's going, oh, what? He doesn't need that heart? Oh, I thought he was gonna go down. Well, then you wouldn't be accomplishing your mission of chaperoning and guiding him along. And on the flip side, how does he not know what a Spawn is? Like, obviously, Todd has a concept and it gets changed, but the fact that the Violator has no idea what a Spawn is, what it can do, and is surprised by it, just makes it seem like, so he thought he was following a regular guy, but who's wearing a giant cape and disappears and stuff.
Or as we move further through the series, we're going to see later on in that Violator 2-parter, I think it's around issues 12 or 13, somewhere around there. No, 14, 15. Anyways, later on, after Neil Gaiman establishes that there have been Spawns throughout history, it's also established that Violator was around back then with medieval Spawn and confronted medieval Spawn and, has probably been chaperoning Spawns for thousands of years or something. So you would think by now, even though in issue 4 of Spawn we don't know this, backtracking, the amount of experience he has and how long he's been around and chaperoning these Spawns, like you said, you'd think he would know pretty much everything there is to know about spawns. So it's one of those things about, you know, early days establishing things that later on, unfortunately, with things getting added on to the continuity, tend to contradict certain things, right?
All right. Yeah. Completely agree on that. With the next page, it continues his rant. And we had talked about before where you were thinking that how cool it would be if the Violator had been a mentor, and like what a dynamic that would have been if they had to work together, and if Spawn did have to keep going back to the Violator trying to learn new things but never knowing if he can trust him. And that would have been a more interesting series than him getting the Cagliostro character, who
Yeah.
you just know he's the good guy who's trying to push him in the right direction. It's such a missed opportunity. Visually though, I want to go on. I mean, this is it's a really pretty issue. Except for the first issue, it's a fantastic issue. It's so consistent throughout. The poses of Spawn are really good. We get that sort of slight nose suggestion, which would make sense if it was just a bit of cartilage left or something.
Yeah.
The different panel layouts that he keeps doing are awesome. I mean, this is a splash page with two long panels dividing in between the characters. The page next to it, you know, the hand, maybe that doesn't even take a ton of work time to do, but it's great representation of the hand. There's definitely enough details. Explosions coming off. I like all the poses. I love that he is continuing to keep Spawn a lot in shadow. I think that works so effectively for the mood of the comic, and just have the eyes light up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think these two pages are good representations of, you know, the give and take of, you know, you want to draw some cool stuff and make pretty awesome looking pages, but also you've got deadlines. So again, if you analyze it like that, the pages look great, but also deadline wise, you can get through these pretty quickly. You know, the way they're cropped, you know, the splash of Spawn and Violator. He hasn't drawn a lot of Violator. It's basically a headshot, right?
Yeah.
And
Sure.
really no backgrounds to speak of on
Right.
these two
Yeah.
pages either, or barely.
Yeah.
And you know, a lot of it is just graphically interesting from the artist's point of view, in a very quick and efficient way, is how I describe it. Like all of these shots on these pages here, these are pages that can be done fairly quickly and gotten through fairly quickly to move on some other stuff and to hit those deadlines. But still doesn't make them in any way less interesting. Todd, I think, is a master of that as far as drawing comics, making stuff look really cool and interesting, but also from his point of view, stuff that's fairly easy and quick to get through to move on and get this book out. He really has a good way of striking a balance there.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. I did think the line coming from Spawn, though, I believe this belongs to me. Like, I can't picture it in the voice of that character. You know,
Yeah.
I believe this belongs to me. Like, it just seems like a weird line for his character.
It does seem out of character, yeah. And
Yeah.
you know, picking up your own heart that's been lying on the ground, there's like,
Yeah.
you know, dust and dirt and maybe a few insects crawling over it and stuff. It's kind of gross, but I guess with his power and stuff, he can kind of just, you know, zap
Yeah.
that stuff away.
Power washes it real quick.
Just the fact that he realizes he doesn't need a heart, but he still takes it back, you know, it's
Yeah.
just, I don't know.
Yeah. You still want it.
He still wants to feel human, I guess, is what he's trying to get across here.
Yeah. Very low amount of dialogue. Or well, not low amount of dialogue, but so far there's no story advancement of any kind. This is all just face off so far and posturing.
Yeah.
We carry on, and it's this. I think this is the last page of the posturing. I mean, this is literally 7 pages leading to something. And I was thinking about a movie that it reminded me of The Good and the Bad and the Ugly, but where that really works at the end of that film, where there's 5.5 minutes just of these 3 guys backing up into position to have this final showdown at the end of a 3-hour movie. But you've got the music going in the background that, you know, really gets you in the mood of their intensity, and it closes in on their eyes flickering back and forth as they're like watching each other because nobody trusts anybody, and stepping back slowly, but also hands keep darting like, huh? And then when that ends, there's a 2.5 minute scene of just the looking back and forth, like who's going to draw first. But it works in a movie. because there is that mood music to keep the intensity up, and you can see the eye flicker. And so the 7 pages here leading up to this battle, I don't get that same kind of dramatic feel out of it. I just feel like nothing's happened.
Yeah, exactly. There's no heightened tension necessarily that's building. It's just, yeah, like you said earlier, a lot of posturing, basically.
Yeah. And since we've gotten only one, like Spawn's only fight before is in issue 1 against some thugs. This is 7 pages. We could just open on, like, give us that 1 page recap like what we talked about, and then just explode into the action, because that's what Eric Larson would have done. He would have given us the 7 pages of action before he got back to a little more story, versus this spends 7 pages of setup, and then I think the battle is 2 pages, maybe 3,
The
and
actual,
most
yeah.
off camera. It's, but again, this is another pretty page. The page itself is beautiful. He's doing,
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, he's doing a fantastic job on that. And then all this stuff you got to read all basically equates to, you messed with me, and I gotta hit you back. It's,
Yeah. This is a bit of a slog to read through, honestly. Just all this
yeah,
dialogue from Spawn of like, yeah, 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 and you did this, and you're a jerk, and I don't like you. That's basically
yeah,
what's happening here, right? Your
yeah,
boss is a dick, and like, yeah. But yeah, like let's say as a cool Spawn image, as a splash page, looks great. The
yeah.
lighting effects on his powers, the you know, everything kind of emanating from his hand there looks really cool. Kind of becomes
Mhm,
obviously a staple kind of thing that he's going to do all throughout the series.
mhm.
And even the insert panel, I like kind of that weird inked rough broken border, and that McFarlane thing of you know, stopping the holding line and just keeping the space open. I think this is one of those shots where that kind of lighting effect that he does there actually
Mhm.
works really well in that
Yeah.
panel there. Really looks cool. And it helps to ramp up the fact that, like, you see the power emanation on his hand,
Mhm.
you see kind of the light reflecting on his face in that panel, and then, you know, turn the page and then the action finally happens, right?
Yeah. The only thing on it that bothers me is I don't really connect that hand to that body. I understand that he's saying the cape is coming over the arm, but even the way the cape comes over does not say that to my eyes. It
Yeah, where's the
just,
hand coming out of? Like, no idea.
yeah, just looks like a hand floating from nothingness.
It does feel like Todd, sometimes when you do foreshortening when you're drawing one, this is how I do it, and I know Kirby used to do this too.
Mm.
It's like you draw the head and then you draw the hand, and then you
Oh,
kind of connect the two. It's almost like
mm,
Todd did the head and the body and the hand, and he's like, I don't even feel like drawing the arm, so I'll just have the cape drape over it somehow, and like it'll be much quicker to draw those 2 or 3 lines for the cape than drawing an arm and figuring out, the little bits of foreshortening and the spikes on
yeah,
the arm. I mean, I
right.
think distance wise it works,
Mhm.
right? Like we could have seen the arm, but yeah, I just think it's a little visual shortcut he took there to get through the page faster.
Yeah, I mean, what we're really missing is, like, we need the cape hanging down. There's
Yeah.
no indication of cape hanging down so that the arm's coming out from underneath it. The cape's still just going across, like the hand came last and was just an afterthought. Oh wait, I gotta throw a hand in, showing the
Yeah,
power.
almost like it's stuck on top.
Mhm. Yeah, completely. But other than that, it's gorgeous.
It's
It's
still a
great.
pretty cool image, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Only gripe. And then we get to the epic battle that ends up being not epic. And again, this artfully, just another cool page. I mean, it's effectively 2 splash pages next to each other, except it's been turned this way rather than side by side, and it looks cool. There's a ton more text that tells us
Yeah.
pretty much nothing. It's kind of funny to see Todd sort of use the, hey, in storytelling, there's the who, what, when, where, why, and how, and it's almost like he does that.
It's too
And
on the nose, kind of. Like that's, yeah.
yeah, it's almost funny. It's almost like, haha, but like, did you mean to be funny, or
I
is that
don't think
actually?
he meant it. Yeah, it ends up being funny, but yeah, and
Yeah.
this is, listen, out of all the Spawn parodies out there, Spune,
Uh,
Spasm,
uh-huh.
Splitting Image, they all took a shot at this page because this is like a good example of just the weird kind of thought process of Todd McFarlane when, creating a story. And just I like the visual aspect of it being like a scroll and a piece of
Mhm.
paper. I think that's cool. That's some good visual kind of design. But yeah, like just literally, it feels like your high school English class, right? And you're having to write a story, and your teacher's like, well, we need to know the how, the why, the when, the where, right? You got to answer these questions, but not literally spell out the question and then answer it, right? Like that's obviously not very interesting as a reader, to be told that, okay, now I'm explaining this, right? It just, again, it feels like when I was in my, high school English class, the
Yeah.
basics of writing.
It's kind of a fun choice of like we see it's moment to moment rather than a single shot. I mean, I'm trying to picture it. It would be kind of cool if he had done the Jim Lee thing and had like a fold out
Yeah,
four-page
yeah, yeah.
out and had one shot going across, even if you still cropped it this way, like black at the top and bottom or whatever, and just this one long shot would be neat. It also is kind of neat. It's like this and then this. It works both ways.
Listen, the only like this to me, what could be improved a little bit with the way Todd laid it out here is
Uh-huh.
what kind of annoys me is that Spawn and the Violator kind of line up,
Hmm.
like from the top panel to the bottom panel.
Oh,
If
uh-huh.
Spawn had just been moved back to the left a little bit and
Yeah.
Violator moved more to the right, you'd get more of like a movement and a flow from left to right. Um,
Yeah.
it's not a huge problem, but
No,
you
no,
move
it's a
the
good point.
scroll to the left side of the
Yeah.
panel, then you move the Violator over to the right, and then you get a bit more of a sense of that distance between them and the power emanation.
Yeah. Or you just move the violator over and take the sound effect and put it in front of him to
Yeah,
create
just
this.
a little bit of reorienting would just make it a little bit more interesting, and also just make more sense in as much as the reading direction from left to right. This is another instance too. Like I've rarely seen Todd depict Spawn this way, where there's very little like black spots on his body and shadows and
Uh,
stuff. It's just all kind of lit up like that. And again, they use the blue here. Just that always annoys me. Again, it just I like the drawing. I think it looks
oh
cool,
yeah.
but I don't like the color on it. It
Yeah.
doesn't work.
Right. It is totally blue. I agree with you. And I love your point of like how to solve this
Yeah,
stat.
just I think that would just make it better.
Yeah. I will correct on myself. So between the 22 pages that were in this comic, there's 57 panels. So there's a little less than 3 panels per page, but
Yeah,
that's bolstered by that 12 panel sequence that he and Eric did together. Without that 2 page, there's 2.25 panels per page.
that's the
So
average. Yeah.
yeah, 2.25 panels. It's a very low average. Uh, yeah, continuing on with like all really good art, but it's a very disappointing fight scene. They posture and stand off again, and there's a weird switch here where Violator basically tells him like, "I'm here to chaperone you. I'm here to guide you along, but now I'm going to put you in your place." Like, well, then why did you rip his heart out? If that's your job, and you thought pulling his
You
heart
were
out
gonna
would,
kill him. Yeah, exactly.
yeah, it's like you don't know you either don't know what it is you're doing or you can't make up your mind. Yeah. Just pick a
I feel
side, man.
I feel like just story wise, I think Todd just probably had a lot of excitement and some basic ideas to start off the series, but by issue 4, I feel like he's almost running out of ideas, right? Because like after this issue, you get the Billy Kincaid single issue, which just feels like Todd, I really don't like, child predators, as most people don't, I would hope. I'm going to do a story about that using Spawn. And then issues 6 and 7, well, I've got this new character I created with Rob Liefeld. I don't have any ideas, so let's incorporate him into the story, right? Because it does feel like, you're establishing a certain kind of plot line here with Hell and Malabolgia in the first 4 issues. And then I like the Billy Kincaid issue, but it's kind of veering off. And then Overkill, the 2-parter, still
Mhm.
veering off from kind of the main plot line. So it's like he's kind of scrambling for ideas. And by that point is where he brings in, the real writers, right? He pays them
Yeah.
lots of money. And they come in and, Alan Moore establishes a lot of stuff within the Spawn continuity, how hell works. Neil Gaiman comes in, introduces medieval Spawn and the fact that there are, the idea that there are multiple Spawns throughout time, that's Neil Gaiman's. Angela, she's a Neil Gaiman, at least concept creation, right? Yeah. And he was smart to bring those writers in because after that, Spawn, a lot of the storylines, while Todd's still writing, really rely on the stuff that was established, not so much by himself early on, but by those better writers, right?
Yeah, it's a good point. One thing though, the issue 5, that was done on purpose, is he was talking with Alan Moore, and Alan needed a character that could be the point of view through hell. So
basically, still, not of Todd's own volition almost, but like
that story to set up the Alan Moore story.
Yeah. Like, did Alan Moore specifically tell him I need a child predator? Like, I don't know.
I don't know if he told him that, but he was like, he told him that he needed somebody to go to hell, somebody that could be a bad guy, but he's the point of view character. He needed that set up, so had to have Spawn take somebody out.
I feel like maybe the child predator thing, is probably a Todd idea because he also did it in Spider-Man in the Perception storyline, right, with Wolverine.
Oh yeah. And then it also bothered me that this fight starts out with, pre-fight practically, Violator rips Spawn's heart out. Okay, that's pretty big out the gates. And then Spawn will blast him through the chest and wipes a big hole through him. Okay, this is big. And then Violator goes, well, check out this. I can pitch you into a wall. Like,
yeah.
That's...
It's like we've ramped it up and now we're ramping back down.
Yeah. He's acting like it's a big thing. So it really should have skipped this toss thing and used all of this space to get into showing the hacking and the monstrous fighting that we don't get to see off panel in the next couple of pages. Like, all the space was here to give us this epic battle, show us the ripping and the beating, and why? You've done all this time to set up, and then you give us nothing, almost nothing.
Yeah, I mean, with Todd, let's compare him to Larson. Todd has certain strengths that Larson doesn't have, and Larson has certain strengths that Todd doesn't have. I definitely think Larson is well suited to big slam bam action, foreshortening and stuff like that. Todd is maybe not quite as skilled as Eric Larson is in that instance, and that's why the action scene seems a bit tame, I guess. Real quick, if you just go back to the last page, I just want to talk about colors real quick. Here's an example of when we look at Spawn at the top right page. I feel like they're using like a gray here for the highlights. That's what I mean about, like, that's where they should be going, and they will be going later on with the highlights on Spawn using that gray tone. Looks a lot better here when they use the blue. But also, I feel like overall, if you look at these 2 pages, does it feel like the color scheme is generally just brighter and more vivid than past issues? Like, I feel like the coloring takes on kind of a brighter tone in some of these pages in this issue that eventually, the series will go back to those darker tones overall. It feels almost uncharacteristically Steve Oliff. Like, it's almost as if Steve Oliff didn't color these pages here.
It's not as bright as it looks on the screen, but the blues are brighter than...
I should look at the comic.
Yeah.
Right here in front of me.
But for sure.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you're right. It's kind of the watching it on a screen. They do look much more dark and muted in the comic. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, wipe that comment out.
It is still a little brighter than what we're used to. Gosh, the glow on the bottom of the Violator, though, whatever the light source is coming in from behind, that is a cool look, though, because he's so thin and spindly that this light would hit the giant extending jaw that he has. Yeah. Would have been funny to have a panel of like a car that was just going down the street and turn that alleyway, and that was the light source.
Yeah.
And then you just got panels of that car backing up to get the heck out of there. Oh, then, the disappointing moment. I mean, they're yapping, another power blast, and then the real fighting starts, but it's nothing. I mean, there's literally a page missing here, effectively, with just sound effects.
Yeah, this is...
No.
this is an old Todd trick. He did this in Spider-Man 2. I forget which issue, but like all the action kind of happens off panel. It's just sound effects like whap, 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 smack,
Mm.
smack, smack. So again, this is a deadline issue, and Todd's like, man, I can get through this page quickly if I just do it this way. I mean, and it still gets the idea across. It's just kind of a cheap way of doing it. What's funny to me, once again, that violator at the top, see how you can see, like, this is the clearest shot, I think, of that weird triangular depiction of his nose there. And again,
Mhm.
it just looks kind of weird and funny because eventually it gets phased out. When I think of the violator, obviously in his design, I don't think of that nose, but early on he was trying to throw it in there. Just McFarlane has just a weird kind of track record with noses. Look at Spawn too in that first panel. Looks kind of uncharacteristically unlike Spawn. Like it's just it's a
Oh
funny
yeah,
it's
yeah,
a
yeah,
funny shot there. Almost to me feels like an old man yawning or something. Like,
yeah,
meh. It's
yeah,
just a weird
totally.
depiction of Spawn, the pointy nose and everything.
Yeah, it's kind of Bruce Campbell in Evil Dead, like the jaw is extended way down.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
It does almost look like his face is drooping down. It is weird. You're right.
It's early days though, so Todd's trying stuff, and we know that eventually he'll get rid of the nose, but it still pops up from time to time in profile shots and stuff like that.
Yeah, I also think this lettering placement was a poor choice where he's got the nice shooting. You're supposed to hit the target chump. That happens before we see it. So that really should be being spoken at the bottom of that panel. And, whatever, if you happen to cross over into that next panel and take up some of the chomp.
Or just move the chomp down a little bit to
Yeah.
for some of that space. Yeah.
Yeah. No real loss. But also, we don't get to see Violator go and bite his arm off. Come on. Come on.
No, I agree. He cheaps out a little bit here. It's an old McFarlane trick to just get through those pages quicker. And some of these
Yeah.
sound effects, like chomp, okay, tunch. I'm not sure what tunch is supposed to be.
Yeah. Or
Never seen
Vosh.
that one. Vash. And then what's the last one is kgit.
Yeah.
Like the idea is not so bad. The visual
Mhm.
of it can still work, but the choice of words, I don't know what's going on there. It's a little odd to me.
So there's going to be a spot later in the comic where this would have been much cooler to have used. And I'll point it out when we get there. But also, the other, I think, error of this is because they only do 3 on this page, you really needed way more panels. And you could have done way more panels filled with effects and done just little bits and pieces of action happening. And because in small panels, you could draw a lot less detailed because you just need to show a little something of this or a little something of that. Could have gotten an epic fight into this with like a 16 panel grid, even if it's mostly effects, so that when you get this enough at the end, it feels like a lot's happened because honestly, it feels like they've just started to fight. And then someone's like, enough. What? We haven't seen anything.
Yeah. We only get 3 kind of moments in the sequence when, like you said, kind of similar to what you mentioned about the first page, right? If you had the recap
Mhm.
be actual shots of what happened, you'd have more to react to with the enough, like you said. Yeah, absolutely, more would have happened.
Yeah.
Cool shot here, though. I like that splash page.
Yeah.
Good shot of the Malbolgia. And I especially like, again, once again, Todd, I always like his depiction of cities and buildings and architecture. And that city silhouette in the background looks really cool. He's using that weird kind of circular effect for some of the lights again. I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah. And it's interesting. There's a lot of words and you got to read through a bunch of stuff. But effectively, Malbosa's showing up and giving them the lowdown of like, stop fighting. You're on the same team. Okay. You both work for me. You're both part of a hierarchy. And as this plays out, we'll see it. It's like, that would have been so cool. That would have been a really interesting story dynamic of these two guys. It's also weird throughout, and through all this massive text, as Malbosa is explaining to Al that like, hey, you're a special kind of pick. You were this military assassin, so you're perfect for the job that I want you for. And like, yeah, but then as Malbosa goes on, he's like, you have just so much power. I think it happens in the next sequence. Yeah, it's in this sequence where he's telling him like, you only have so much power. So you can either choose to fight evil, which helps me anyway, because it sends more souls to where I need them to be, or you can hang back and let it eat away at you while conserving your power. Either way, I win. And
Yeah.
like, Al wasn't a good guy, at least not in what we saw before. He was a government assassin.
Yeah.
He wasn't really a moral choice guy.
Well, I was going to say,
So
yeah, yeah, his moral compass is obviously skewed, right? Already.
yeah, he wanted to be a badass, but it wasn't like, oh, I really care that somebody's about to be hurt, or I just want to save that old lady so she doesn't trip, or oh, there's some kids starving over there, and meanwhile there's a gang people in the neighborhood who are taking $5 and I could get it for those kids. Like
We
he
never
doesn't
got
really,
that sense of Al Simmons. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah. So the battle of good and evil. I mean, if you told him you could sit back and conserve your power, yeah, yeah, I should do that.
Can we just go back to the page
Yeah.
prior to this, just real quick, because it relates to this as well. You mentioned it, just I mean, the sheer amount of text here, right? As cool as the splash page is, I remember
Hmm.
getting to these pages as a kid and going, "Oh man, like this is going to be a
Oh,
slog to read through," and
yeah.
it's kind of uneven because okay, he's also, I guess, trying to get across the fact that Malbolgia speaks a certain way and is pretty verbose and uses big words and stuff, but it's
Yeah.
very uneven because there was that there's one where he on the top of the second page he goes ha 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 vigor and humor, right? So that kind of establishes a certain uh,
Uh-huh.
verbosity, I guess, that
Yeah.
Malbolgia speaks in. But then on the splash page, he's the line where he goes, "And like it or not, I'm your daddy." Like
Yeah.
those, there's a disconnect between the level of language to it where it kind of jumps around that I think is a little weird. If I'm basing it on what I think he's trying to get across, that more verbose, almost Alan Moore kind of dialogue, maybe. I would have used the word father rather than daddy, right?
Yeah.
It's just very uneven, and I'm not sure how effective it is at getting across what he's trying to get across about Malabolgia, and also Splash page has some great backgrounds, but this next page, and then when you flipped over to the next two pages,
Yeah.
just complete lack of backgrounds. Complete lack of backgrounds.
Yeah. Looking at this now, and I think we mentioned this before, I would wonder if Todd's influence on this, like if he had watched that Hobbit animation that came out, where the way the goblins are designed and their figures, or Smeagol in the Hobbit cartoon, and even the dragon that's in it, like a lot of the Violator and Malboza here both seem very similar, reminiscent of that.
Interesting, yeah.
Um, yeah, there's also, and I'm trying to remember his name. He was an artist that was in heavy metal. He later got known for I think cheesecake picks and then other stuff. But in his early days, his art was similar to this. And I apologize, I'm not remembering his name at the moment. Frustrating. Yeah, no backgrounds. Still beautiful pages. I mean, the art wise, I mean, the way the devil crouches, Malbosa crouches down, and switching from that side paneling to then like the front back shot with like you see Spawn, but you see how imposing Malboza is behind him. Even the color choice of how to like just draw an arm back on, but just a simple disconnecting line and a color change does make it feel like that got magically put back in place.
Materialized. Yeah, the effect works really well. It looks cool.
Yeah. And then the awesome headshot of the Violator coming in from the side and it stretching down. That looks awesome. The little panels work. The final panel showing the nub stub of the arm. Like all of this is like, it's a really beautiful issue. Like as much as I sound like I don't like it, I mean, it's a gorgeous issue.
There's always great design work from McFarlane and layout work. That's kind of his trademark. It's always a little bit different from what other guys are going to do, and it makes it distinct. And yeah, it does look very cool. Absolutely. The shot of Malbolgia crouching, I thought was
Mhm.
kind of fun. It's almost like when you crouch down to pet a cat or to look at a baby or something. Like I always get that kind of sense. Oh, he's kind
Yeah.
of oh, my kids are fighting. Like
Yeah. Yeah. And kind of this cute, horrific, evil creature that wants to destroy everything. Yeah, it's working. He's happy with his horrible job of destruction.
What I don't
The
understand, though, in the layout on the page on the right, I think it looks good, but the Violator at the bottom, who's pointing out, his arm, the nub,
Uh-huh.
Why didn't he do that full bleed? He threw in kind of like that negative space
Oh.
kind of
Hmm.
paneling thing, and that for me doesn't quite work as well down there. It looks a little odd.
Hmm. Yeah, framing choice. Sure.
Less to draw, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, very, very much that might be the case. But yeah, it's frustrating because this comic is very gorgeous, and it's too bad he wasn't teamed up with a writer, because when we see like how great it is when he works with Alan Moore, and so you're getting great story, but you're getting purposeful art, versus here we're just getting pretty pictures, but story wise, nothing happens.
Yeah, because with the writers, with Alan Moore, Neil Gaiman, again, like I said, it's like those two issues introduce a lot of new concepts
Mhm.
and add to the continuity in the world of Spawn in a very meaningful way. And then when it comes back to Todd writing, he
Mhm.
doesn't add much more. He really just starts to strip mine what Alan Moore and Neil Gaiman have kind of established, and expands on it later on in the series, and that's fine. But never really brings anything new to it.
Yeah, it's really too bad that Alan Moore's talents, instead of doing the Spawn Wildcats crossover, which is awful, or the Violator series, which, okay, I've heard the art's really good because, well, it's great artist on there. But if instead it was just like, wow, this issue 8 is so good. Let's keep this rolling.
I was gonna say, just keep Alan Moore writing Spawn, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you can still tell them, you're like, hey, here's some ideas I had. Here's some directions I want to go. I'm sure Alan could do amazing things with it.
Or
Um,
you're even just like, well, you're Alan Moore, I'm Todd McFarlane. Just go ham, Alan Moore. Just
yeah,
I'll follow you.
right.
There's no reason for me to be telling you how to write anything.
Yeah, I suppose he would have to fall into that I don't tell you how to write, don't tell me how to draw attitude that he has.
And also, like I've been talking about, if looking at the book and Todd's writing, it's not like he seems to have that many ideas about it, anyways.
Mhm.
Already,
Yeah.
Alan Moore in one issue has just come up with so many great concepts that Todd would never have thought of. Right? He
Yeah.
doesn't. I don't think he has that same level of imagination that Alan Moore clearly has.
Oh, this one is again, I mean, this spread is great. Just using the little bits and details of Malboja. And also there is kind of a sense of him already fading out, or he's emanating so much powerful fury that it's blinding, so that the Violator can't even really see him. Like, I think that effectively works. The hand works, the drop works. You could point out the figure a little more. That's about the only complaint I can give. But then,
It still works. I like it.
yeah, the silhouette of Spawn with just enough cape detail, that always works. The Violator back to his clown mode, and then going to the splash page. Like, we've gotten double page splashes in this, splash pages. Spawn just wrapped up in his cape like a cocoon while the Violator is all upset. Visually, it's all awesome to look at. I just want it to mean something more.
Yeah, well, this splash page, kind of like the double page splash at the beginning of the issue, we've seen a very similar shot of Violator and Spawn in a prior issue. I don't know if it's an issue 2 or 3,
Oh,
but
uh-huh.
it's like the Violator's just, he doesn't have his hands up, but I feel like the layout and everything is really, really similar to something we've seen before.
Okay. And I was going to say, so this is the spot where I think it would have been awesome to have done a battle of sound effects, because the Violator messed with Spawn hard. And the Violator even says, like, oh, kick a guy when he's down, why don't you? Would have been a perfect moment to have a panel where, boom, Spawn just kicks him in the back, and then go into a bunch of little panels of, oh, ow, oh, come on, really? And just letting us know that Spawn is just taking it to him, like, I didn't
Well,
ask for you to show up.
maybe, yeah, like it does feel a little weird, I guess, that after all this conflict, and obviously Spawn and Violator clearly don't like each other. Now Violator, because he can't turn into the big monsters, pretty much at Spawn's mercy.
Yeah,
Spawn could have been a jerk and kind of taken advantage of the situation, kicked him around a bit.
yeah, yeah. I think that would have been a fun closeout to the adventure, and also kind of further this relationship that should have been there, of them sort of having to begrudgingly work together. And how's it gonna work? Spawn can't trust him, but he needs information. Would the Violator ever maybe see something Spawn's way and help him out. And then the little 3-panel sequence is a nice spot too. I mean, it still works. It's goes kind of it goes monochromatic, which works well. I like the little close up of the Violator, and then the walk off all works, and then it runs into that sequence that it's. I do feel like this sequence doesn't really fit here nearly as good as it fits in the other book. Like, I feel like they needed to flip it.
But it is a nice, like we've talked about before, early on at Image when they were still kind of, trying to create an Image universe continuity, and these characters exist in the same universe, and trying to create some connective tissue between, in this case, Spawn and Savage Dragon. I think, is just fun. And this might be the only time Todd has drawn Savage Dragon. I can't think of any other. There might be one or two pinups he did. No, I think I'm thinking of Greg Capullo when he did.
Was it an Eric? Who did the layouts though? I mean, this is very Spawn art.
I feel like this came first. The Todd McFarlane thing came first, and then when you looked at the Savage Dragon issue, it feels like Eric took the same maybe penciled pages, or maybe threw these on a light table and redid them in kind of Eric Larson inks. So there's still kind of Todd McFarlane layouts, I guess, inked by Larson. And there's one extra panel in the Savage Dragon issue that is not in the sequence here. It's kind of like the last panel of Spawn walking away, but it's from the opposite point of view, like you're in front of Spawn, and it's just like a shot of his face kind of cropped about like this. And that panel, clearly you can tell, was completely created by Eric Larson.
It would have been more fun for one of these, whichever one comes second, is if when he got to the TV screen, it wasn't the same guy. So it's like, oh, it's that cool new hero. And again, it's that same scene. And then when it gets to the TV screen, it's like another guy. It's like Spawn. You're not the only hero in town. Like if on there
there's a lot. Yeah.
Or if it was Pitt on there, one of the upcoming characters, like just because we, the audience, would expect it to be the same one. So probably in the Savage Dragon one, it shouldn't have been Savage Dragon on the screen, but have it be somebody else.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
It could have been fun.
I like the nostalgia value of that shot of Spawn and the kids in front of the TV screens, just because it's such a trope. I remember seeing this in TV shows and movies and stuff, and it was something that people did like in the 80s, I guess still in the early 90s. Some sort of hi-fi shop like Radio Shack or something. They always had a bunch of TVs in their display window. I don't know if this still exists today. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
This idea that you're walking on the street and some shop just has a bunch of TVs set up. I guess now it's, LC whatever TVs or computer screens, right?
Right. Yep. They used to be window shopping. Like they'd stick this stuff to the front that like, you're going to want this. And you're walking by like, I don't really need a new TV, but that's so much cooler than the one I have.
Yeah, because now the only equivalent I can think of is when I go to Costco and I walk in, and the first thing they're kind of displaying are the TVs, right? That's the first thing they want to get you to buy. Yeah.
I was trying to think of clothing stores. If you're going through a mall, they're still going to put some cool outfits in the window.
Yes, for sure. But this idea of multiple screens kind of in a display, I don't see that anymore. Obviously, you know what? True. Probably because also I don't go shopping physically very often anymore either. You know what I mean? Like most of it's done through Amazon. So
yeah. And then this final page, which there's only really 2 panels, an establishing shot, and then one of Wanda. So a very quick one to get through. But it also this literally the sequence. She wakes up upset as if like somehow she felt the thing that just happened, and she has a dream about her husband and how her ex-husband now, and how he needs her, but she can't help him, and it's tearing at her, and Terry does the understanding thing of being like, hey, I get it. That was your ex-husband. I'm still here for you, even if that's what you need to talk about. That's a great sequence, but it would be a way better sequence if this was built up to. We should have seen, he should have seen his wife in issue 2. That should have been the plot of like, while Violators cutting up mobsters, Spawn's doing the thing to go see his ex-wife. That should have already happened. And then there should be some buildup in issue 3 of her having a dream, or maybe she had a dream in issue 2. You know, have her have a dream of this, and then she's having more intense dreams. Like the fact that he's present or around her is like it's influencing her more. So that in this sequence where she's like, it's making me crazy. We could feel that now. Otherwise, it just feels like you had one bad dream and you feel like you're losing your mind. All right, that's somebody you might not want to sleep next to.
Yeah, this again, like you mentioned, is pretty much a deadline page, I feel like, especially
Oh,
as it's the last page of the issue. So yeah, the design definitely goes in the direction of not having to draw too much. Still think it works effectively visually. It is still a visually interesting page, in spite of the fact that, the actual what's happening on the page is not very, action packed or interesting, really. He still finds a way to make it visually interesting, which is always one of Todd's strengths.
yeah.
Also, you've got like the digital copy here, I assume. It throws in that little Spawn logo at the
Oh,
bottom,
yeah.
which
Yeah,
is a
yeah.
nice touch because it
Uh,
kind of gives you assume, like I assume when I see that, oh, it's the end of the issue. But in the
yeah.
original, I thought it was a little weird that you get this last page, you read the text, what Wanda says, her dialogue, and then there's just nothing. Anytime there's no indication at all, I'm always like, okay, so is this the end? Is there, I'll turn in a link. Is there another page? Am I missing something?
Yeah.
I think it sounds maybe a little bit trite and stupid, but
Mhm.
there should always be some sort of indication on the last page, whether it says the end to be really obvious or to be continued, or even in this case, I think using that Spawn logo works really well. Some sort of visual indication that it's the end of the issue. Because anytime it's not there, I'm just always like, okay, so this is the end?
Uh-huh.
Unless for some reason it's really obvious. But on this page, without that Spawn logo, it's not obvious that this is where the story ends.
And I think one thing they could add to this is if all these panels and stuff was moved up a little bit and you had another panel that was just the devil laugh trailing off.
Yeah, already that would be a visual kind of cue or indication that this is probably the end of the issue. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you much. All right.
So that's the end of the issue. The
Yeah.
digital copy. The only other thing, I've got the physical copy here that I want to talk about. Just a
Oh,
few
yeah.
things.
Cool
Um,
thing.
yeah, well, this here, I forgot about this ad, but
Yeah. Great looking.
one of the early ads for Wetworks, I guess. And what's fun about this one is that it's inked by Todd,
Uh-huh.
and Will's Portasio's style, as I was talking about watching that Raw Observations interview, you know, Rob really mentioned that like we were all copying kind of what Will Portasio was doing ink wise, right? And everyone gets something different out of it. So Rob Liefeld ends up inking slightly different from Scott Williams and slightly different from Todd McFarlane, but they're all kind of pulling from what Will Portasio is doing. So usually when I see an image inked by Todd McFarlane, you remember the Shadowhawk one? Jim Valentino drew it, but McFarlane inked it. It looked like a
Oh, yeah.
McFarlane drawing because he inked it.
Mhm.
This is one instance where I really don't pick up a lot of McFarlane in
Mhm.
this one. His style
Yeah.
is usually pretty strong and you can see it. I could
Mhm.
almost believe if I didn't know that Will Portasio had inked this himself or Scott Williams had. There's very few indications other than maybe in the way the cloth is ripped up here,
Yeah.
some of the angles and textures. I mean,
Yeah.
on the main figure there, I really don't pick up on any
Mhm.
McFarlane at all, which I guess is maybe a testament to the strength of Will Portasio's style that even McFarlane's like can't really modify it that much when inking it.
Yeah.
But again, one of those fun early collaborations and early image of Todd inking other guys and Rob inking the cover to Wildcats. Like I love all that stuff from early image days.
Yeah.
This
It's
one
also,
always, yeah, go ahead.
oh, yeah, that's what I was gonna go ahead.
Well, this, back in the day, I had no idea who Dave Sim was, Cerebus was, so this was just a little bit weird to me. And I
Mhm.
gotta say, I never got into Cerebus, or Cerebus, I guess it's called. Cerebus? Who knows?
Therapist.
Potato, potato. And issue 10, written by Dave Sim, was never really one of my favorite issues of Spawn.
Mhm.
I understand now in hindsight where they were going and what it is. It's almost like it's not even a Spawn issue. It's a Todd
No, it's a
McFarlane Dave
commentary.
Sim issue, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It doesn't really take place in Spawn continuity, really, even though they do tie it in somehow when Angela shows up. Or it ties into the fact that Angela, when she used the staff or whatever on Spawn, he was sent to this other dimension where he meets Cerebus, and where
Mhm.
really he's just a stand-in for Todd McFarlane. So yeah, I mean, that was never my favorite issue. There's some cool visual stuff in it, but yeah, I just, as a kid, I was like, maybe I have a little bit more appreciation for it now, as far as, them tackling creator rights and all that. But
Mhm.
yeah, I was never really into Cerebus. Never, I've seen the books, I've looked through them a little bit. It's just not my thing.
Mhm. Yeah. Read some of the early ones. I didn't get to the point that's supposed to be the great storytelling. I was mostly reading through the Conan pastiche. Well, no, the Conan kind of spoof
Yeah,
portion of it. Yeah. Uh, yeah, but it's also a beloved comic by a lot of people. So hey,
seems
but
like I've heard some problematic stories about Dave Sim.
later,
So
yeah, later, yeah.
uh,
But Spawn number 4, gorgeous art that holds down a story where almost nothing happens, and that really is kind of the issue with issues 2, 3, and 4, is that this really didn't need 4 issues, 3 issues at most to tell this story. It could almost be done in 2.
agreed. Yeah, it's what's the word, stretched out or decompressed storytelling has kind of become a popular term and something that happens a lot in comics maybe in the last 10-15 years.
Yeah.
But Todd, I would say in the early 90s with Spawn is could be accused of a little bit of that, of really stretching a lot of stuff out, and that would kind of go with what I've mentioned earlier, that maybe Todd just doesn't have that many ideas for Spawn. And that's why very quickly he's got to get those, proper writers to come in and establish some things that
Mm.
he's going to strip mine for the rest of the series after that.
Yeah. Would have been cool to keep working with them. They did a good job overall. I mean, other than like the Frank Miller one doesn't really add.
Yeah, that one kind of misses the mark, I would say. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But for the most part, big successes. Wish he had just stuck with a co-writer and
Yeah, well, what we talked about, earlier, this kind of, this imaginary match made in heaven of Alan Moore writing and Tom McFarlane on Spawn. I mean, I can't imagine that not doing gangbusters. But maybe
no.
Todd was like, well, I'm already selling shitloads of Spawn issues without, with my not so great writing. So,
Uh,
I might sell a little bit more with Alan Moore, but Alan Moore is also going to cost me a lot, right? It's rumored that they got paid, like Neil Gaiman. I, I think it's been mentioned he got paid like $100,000 or
100.
something.
Yeah, 100 grand. It's
That's
crazy.
that's crazy, man, for one
Yeah.
issue.
Yeah. And then to come back to sue later. It's like, come on, man, 100 grand was
Yeah, that was. I remember when Kayfabe did the whole
yeah, the
court
the
proceedings, and they
depositions.
read through it and stuff. And Todd
Mhm.
would send him what he called the love checks.
Love checks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he probably got a little bit more than 100 grand, because every once in a while, when he's annoying Todd for signing
Mhm.
that contract, I was like, here's another. Yeah, I don't. I'm guessing here, but here's another 15 grand. Just
Mhm.
let it be, Neil. Let it be.
Yeah, and Neil Gaiman coming in and just talking purely art and creation, not going to get into
Yes.
his
Yeah. Yeah. I got
what's
you.
going on. But Neil Gaiman would have also been another great writer for Spawn if he was writing a
I
few
think
issues a
so.
year.
Absolutely. Yeah.
The
Yeah. Yeah.
places he could have taken this character and the kind of adventures that he could have put him on, or even where it's just going to places where Spawn's an observer or helping out. It like, oh, he could have done incredible stories with this.
Oh, absolutely. Like, listen, Alan Moore established a lot in his one issue, but I mean, Neil Gaiman, again, he introduced Angela and the idea of spawns across time. And that's, again, you don't get Spawn Dark Ages without that idea. You don't get Curse of the Spawn without that idea. So,
Yeah.
Todd really maximized everything that Neil Gaiman established with that issue. He just like he down to the bone, just like used all of it. Probably to great regret later, again, because that probably also gave credence to the court case of like, well, yeah, look at everything that he kind of took from this issue that I wrote to keep going with Spawn for years and years and years with some of the concepts I established. So I should get some credit for that, I guess.
Yeah, tough spot to be in where you want to maintain creator rights or be a champion of that, and then go, okay, now when I'm going to bring you in, I'm going to give you 100 grand, which is a crazy amount of money to pay you for writing one issue. but sign this that like whatever you put in here, that's mine. Don't come back and bug me about it later. Which, to be fair, probably would have been a proper thing to do.
I think, yeah, if he had just written up a contract, it's like, hey, I'm all for creator rights, but in this instance, I'm hiring you to write this issue. You're getting paid $100,000, which no comic writer has probably ever been paid for one single issue. I think in that case, it would. I don't have like a moral issue, creator ownership wise, to ask Neil Gaiman to like, basically, I'm paying you $100,000 to give over the rights to the concepts in this issue, right? I think that's what Todd was kind of, what he was thinking, right? But because he didn't get it on paper, on a contract and signed by Gaiman, that came back to bite him in the ass later.
Yeah.
And I mean, Gaiman by that point had been a writer for who knows how long. So he knows all about contracts and how these work. And you have to be very specific. So, he realized, hey, Todd didn't have me sign a contract. I can go after him, right? So guys, thank you for listening to our little talk about foreskins and also our review of Spawn number 4, which is going to end our run here on the first storyline of Spawn and the Image Founding Fathers. If you guys are watching the channel and are still subscribed, thank you so much. We appreciate all the loyalty and support. If you're watching but you're not subscribed, please do so below. It only takes a quick second, really helps the channel out, helps us grow, and helps get us out there to other people who are into comic books, just like we are. Speaking of comic books, we make our own. Mark has his series Guano Guy. He's got Kayfabe, The Death of a Super, and he's got Darkest Image. You can check out his stuff at Big Cartel. Yeah. And my comics, you can check out Big Baby. Got 13 issues of that one. And I've got my STARCRASHER one-shot, sci-fi, cosmic, psychedelic adventure. You can check my stuff out at KINGCOMICS.CA. So that's going to do it for today, guys. Thank you for watching. Mark, thank you for joining me once again. It's been a pleasure and fun as always. And everyone out there, have yourselves an awesome day.
King Comics presents Big Baby, Volume 1, Issues 1 to 13, 204 pages of story and art. King Comics also presents STARCRASHER one-shot, 32 pages, cosmic sci-fi surrealist adventure. You can find these fine comics at KingComics.CA, at MaximusRex13 on Instagram, or on Facebook, MaxRex or Big Baby.
Like! Subscribe! Like! Subscribe!